Father's Day. So it's here every year. I put some time into it only because I've had an interesting experience as a father, actually. So what I've experienced in life, really, for the most part, it's a loving, caring, and intentional relationship that creates children, meaning that's part of it. That's one aspect to it. And then there's another side of creating children, and that's biology, and it's just sort of passion, and boom, there it is. And then the third one is, it's a little more confusing and hard to kind of put a finger on it, and that has to do with just who knows. I mean, it just happens. You know what I mean? And in that case, it's sometimes the man doesn't want to take responsibility, and he kind of just escapes. But in all three instances, love, biology, or just escapism, that man becomes a father. That's just part of it. That's part of the nature of it. And we have this ideal perspective of what a father should be and who he is and what he should do. And it's ideal. It's this ideology that's been, whether it's in scripture, whether it's in books, whether philosophy, however you want to put it, movies. I mean, it's all there. It's sort of, this is what a perfect father should be. This is what we strive for. This is what we should be. Well, I can tell you, in my own experience, I fell short of that sometimes. It's just, we're all human. I'm human. I had to look at that and go, yeah, you know what? This is part of the deal. You are human. You're not going to make it. You're not going to be perfect. And one of the ways that most fathers, and I'm only speaking of fathers right now, that to communicate as the responsibility of a father to the children, how to be, what values to have, what to respect, how to just be on a daily basis in life. And we tend to communicate that, it's just chew with your mouth closed, and use your utensils, and don't be rude. And I mean, there's all kind. We have it. We have all of it. It's pretty amazing. So, and in the process of communicating that, we tend to just react. You know what I mean? It's just the nature of us. And I'll never forget one of the most significant things that I remember. That I've always had some regret around is that when the kids take them to the store and they see a toy, they see some candy, and they say, oh, can I have that? Can I get this? Can I get that? And my automatic reaction, for the most part, was, no, we can't do that. Why? I want that. Yeah. Well, we don't have the money. The money's not available. Well, what I realized later on, quite later on in life, is that really what I was telling them, that we were poor. In a very subtle way, I was saying, no, we just don't, we're poor people. And so really, in many ways, I was instilling a poverty consciousness into them that they took with them in their adulthood, as opposed to just being honest and saying, no. And really thinking it through and going, no, we're not going to do that. I know you don't understand this. A lot of sugar over here. We don't need that. And I know what you're like on sugar. And the other is, we don't need that. We've got a lot of toys right now. Let's wait till there's a special occasion. Whatever the explanation is that's real, as opposed to, I don't have the money. So I never forgot that. It was one of the things that came to mind to me really quickly, because what I've learned is that kids really, the children we bring into life, really don't learn from us what we say. They learn from us what we do, our example. And a lot of times, what we demand of them, or at least what we try and teach them, is not, and sometimes even opposite to, the example that we give them. And really, what they take away and bring into their psyche and into their being is emulating us, because that's the only thing they know. You know, I mean, it's like our brains are like computers, they're little hard drives, and you're going, oh, this is how he does it. You know, it's a very interesting way of programming, because it doesn't, it's so automatic. So, and later on, when my kids became teenagers, you know, I was like, and teenagers can be very honest, you know? And they brought up some of the things that I actually, you know, showed them as an example. And I'll tell you what, it was uncomfortable and it made me cringe. And my first thing was defensiveness. That's not, no way, you know what I mean? And once I kind of started to think about this a little bit, they weren't, there's truth. There was a lot of truth in what they were saying. I didn't like it. I didn't want to really admit to it. But I do, after time, I really saw, you know, there's a lot of truth in that, and I really had to look at it. You know, it took me a while to get that maturity and even that consciousness and the awareness that, yeah, you know, you definitely weren't perfect by any means, you know. So really, when it comes to Father's Day, yeah, I do love the fact that my kids call me, or they send me a card, or they come over and say, Happy Father's Day. But it's really ritualistic. It really has this this feeling of, this is what I have to do, you know, because it's my dad, I got to do it. And I would love a little bit more a two-way street on this, because as much as I'm being their father, I did the best I could in terms of taking care of them, to keep them safe, to make sure that they had all the needs met in terms of schooling, in terms of food and clothing, you know, all that. I was responsible, and I did the best I could. It wasn't perfect, but I did the best I could. But really, the essence of how a human being should be, as a father, for instance, the example I set, yeah, there's some regret around that, you know, and I really look at it. And so Father's Day for me is just, so it's a time for me to also not just expect them to appreciate me, but to also take my time to appreciate them. It's a two-way thing, because in many ways, I learned through them who I really am, and how I was, and how I would like to be, and they learned from me the fact that I kept them safe, I took care of them, because now they're adults. I mean, really, I hate calling them my kids. It's like little kids are little kids. These are adults. These are, now we're relating as adults. But the weird part behind that is that no matter how old you are, you tend to take with you the relationship that you have with your parents, whether it's father or mother. And in this case, it's father. And you take that with you, and some of it is good, and some of it's a little uncomfortable, and you know, it could be a little edgy, you know, because it's weird. You don't ever, you tend to take all that stuff along, and so I found, in terms of celebrating Father's Day, it's a good time to sort of, also as a father, to take on, to literally receive the gratitude that's coming your way, but it's also a good time to kind of give the gratitude that, hey, you know, I really appreciate the fact that you came into my life, that I was able to help bring you in. And yeah, truth is, both of us know it wasn't perfect. And whatever wasn't perfect, I feel I have some regret around. And if I have to, I apologize in general. But it doesn't have to be a wording. It can be a feeling. Because, you know, the truth is, and here I am talking, but most of communication, the real true value and emotional and beauty of a communication is unspoken. It's a feeling. It's a feeling of being loved and cared for. And Father's Day to me is, I really want to project that I care for them and I really appreciate them in my life. And so that's a part of celebrating. For me, it's a two-way street. And based on that, I hope you guys have a wonderful Father's Day. And for all your fathers that have, been in your kids' lives and taken care of them, there's a deep respect. Then there's a lot of, I think there's growth in the process. And if you take on that growth as a human being, not just a father, as a human being, there is a lot of rewards. So happy Father's Day to all of you.